Hi, I'm Hannah Holden and we're here at Alwoodley Golf Club, and today we're going to be meeting Tom to check out the new Ping Blueprint irons. So let's go and see how he gets on with them. So just a bit on the tech. The Ping Blueprint iron is designed for elite players. It's a forged blade iron and it's made from 8620 carbon steel. As you can see, this is a really small blade and it's designed by Ping for more workability, so you can do more shot shaping with this club, and it's something that their tour players have really been asking for. We've already seen players like Oosthuizen and Finau put these in the bag, so they've gone down really well on tour. So one thing is they have a really shorter blade length, quite a narrow sole and no offset, so these really are designed for your better ball strikers. They're not really designed to have high MOI because they're not really designed to provide forgiveness, because generally these players already have really good ball striking capabilities, but they do have this tungsten screw in the end which does increase the MOI slightly, so you are getting a little bit more forgiveness in these irons. So we've just been out on the range with Tom and got some TrackMan numbers for the new Blueprint irons. So Tom, what were your first impressions when hitting them?
Well, I've been quite excited about this product from Ping. I've been a sort of Ping player for quite a number of years now, and my sort of club history is that I go from having something very chunky and very forgiving, but I desperately want to be someone who uses blades. So over the years I've had many iterations of Mizuno, I've had some Titleist blades, and I'm currently using the Ping iBlade. So this I'm really hoping was going to be sort of ideal for me, really. The first impressions I had were just absolutely stunning golf club, basically.
So we started out with the pitching wedge. What did you notice kind of with the numbers, the feel of that?
It was a really compact head. It's like quite a square head, just what you'd expect from like a bladed club. Like anybody who plays blades at the moment will sort of be someone who drools over this sort of thing, and I think Ping doesn't really disappoint. It's obviously their first venture into this market, and it genuinely looks the part as a bladed wedge, so it sort of sits really tight behind the ball. And I was like really pleased with my TrackMan numbers with the wedge particularly. It didn't seem to lose any distance. Spinning was about what you'd expect or where you'd want it, but my front to back dispersion was unbelievably tight. So I think the difference between my longest and shortest wedge was like 0.4 of a yard or something. So that's just what you want from a wedge. Yeah, brilliant.
So then moving into the longer irons, so the 7-iron and the 4-iron, we saw a bit of a difference in them. Can you describe that?
Well, I think the unfortunate thing about kind of bladed clubs is that it sort of depends a lot what you bring to the party on the day and how you're swinging it. And I would say that on my best swinging days that I would be someone who could use a set of bladed irons, but obviously we don't often have our best swinging days, and my overall numbers on this day, even with my own irons, was a little bit shorter than I'd expect, so perhaps wasn't having the best day, and that sort of was borne out in the ball speeds and the carry numbers I was getting in the longer irons particularly. So certainly the 7-iron sort of stood up versus my own in terms of distances, and again that really tight front to back dispersion, and then just lost a little bit in the 4-iron. But I think that's more user on the day rather than the golf club actually.
So overall we'd say that the dispersion was better, but perhaps in the long irons we were losing a little bit of distance compared to your own.
Yeah, and it was I think I lost 8 or 9 yards in the long iron, but the consistency across the board was huge. So I was getting more consistent results from these Blueprint irons than I was from my own iBlades. I was just getting a little bit more forgiveness, a little bit more distance in the long irons.
So perhaps for someone who's looking for something that's really consistent on distance, wants better distance control, this is a really good iron to be looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I said at the start, it delivers on what you'd expect from a bladed club, which is that really nice, compact look at address and those really, really consistent dispersion, front to back dispersion numbers.
So we've been out on the range, we're going to head out on the course now and see how they perform out there. So we're here in the first fairway at Alwoodley. We've got about 130 to the pin. Tom's going to test out the Blueprint pitching wedge first and then compare it to his own.
Yeah, so this is what I'd expect to be hitting a wedge from here under normal circumstances. And as soon as you get this club on the ground, it just looks beautiful. It's a really tight, compact head, just what you'd expect from a bladed iron. It's got a little tiny bit of high toe, which sort of gives you a little bit more confidence. And this is in the specification that I've got in my own iron, so should be something that I'm used to. So that's, yeah, pretty bob on for distance. Probably least said about the line the better, but pretty much what I'd expect from a yardage point of view. And this is my own iBlade. It does look more forgiving. It still looks quite bladey, but you can tell it's sort of a different type of golf club. It's obviously a cast head. I think that sort of feels like it's come off a bit quicker. But yeah, so it's about right for distance. So I mean, that wedge in the blueprint is just a beautiful looking thing, and you could use that all day long. You can sort of see the difference as they're sat next to each other. So yeah, pretty good.
So when we're around the greens, sometimes people want something that's more blade-like in feel. So we're just going to hit some shots with both and see how they perform.
This is where people would want to have that sort of slightly more compact look and kind of that crispness of strike that you get off a blade and that consistency of strike. I think already you can sort of see that sits, it's quite tight turf here at Alwoodley, and that sort of sits perfectly behind it and just gives you a lot of confidence that you can play that bump and run like quite aggressively. And I think these wedges are like really good. And they're certainly not the clunkiest thing on the market, but there is that little bit more weight in the bottom of the club. They are slightly more sort of cavity backed. Again, they've got that cast head, it's not a blade finish. So you would sort of feel like you could potentially get a slightly jumpier contact sometimes. So I think that is somewhere where the iBlade would sort of have some advantages. But yeah, I mean, either of those sits really nice.
So we're here at the second at Alwoodley, and we're just going to test the two 4-irons out and see what the differences are.
Yeah, so this is pretty much the club that I would hit off this tee normally. We'll see in the numbers, the TrackMan numbers, that I was losing a little bit of distance with this 4-iron. And I guess that it is in the longer irons where perhaps something like an iBlade, where you have got that little bit more sort of reassurance of kind of playability, that the blade sort of plays on your back of your mind. But again, it just looks beautiful. It's so compact. It's like a proper old school bladed look to it. I presume exactly what Ping were trying to sort of add to their range. The top line's like lovely and thin, just like you'd get on a Mizuno or a Titleist blade, and it sits like really square behind the ball. The biggest thing is there's absolutely no offset with it. So, and that for me is that is actually quite reassuring, that the ball's probably not going to go left on me with that lack of offset. So that is a really good feature of these irons. Oh, so that just feels like absolutely pure. And if I could sort of guarantee I'd get near that all the time, then these sorts of irons are sort of a bit of a no-brainer, really. I do like the long irons in the iBlade. I've played with them for 18 months, nearly 2 years, and they do give you that sort of bladey look. A tiny little bit offset maybe, but you just sort of know that there is that little bit more forgiveness in them. So I guess it's just kind of down to personal preference as to what you're kind of looking for in your long irons. Yeah, I mean, it still feels great and it sounds great. I just think that there's just that little bit of extra kind of like purity to the sound of the strike with those, isn't there? But yeah, really, really good, both of them.
So we're on the 16th hole now, and we're just having a look at flyer lies and how the ball reacts out of the semi-rough. So we're going to take a look and compare the two irons and just see how they perform and where they finish on the green.
Yeah, I think like getting out and playing shots out of real life situations like this is what kind of trying to figure out what irons are right for you is all about. Like, we've just hit 2 shots off the second tee there, and all of the TrackMan data would tell us that my current 4-iron will go further. When we get up to the balls, actually the shot I hit with the blueprint had gone further. They're both pretty decent strikes. So I think you have to be careful just picking clubs off TrackMan numbers, and I think having a look how they perform on the golf course is equally as important. And this sort of situation here, where we've got about 160, 165, this hole always plays in the right to left crosswind. Often you're on this right hand semi and there's out of bounds behind the green, so you're constantly worried about getting a flyer. So in my mind, one of the advantages of a forged head and a club offering a bit more control is that in this sort of situation you'd feel a bit more like you could take a bit of distance off, you could control the flight a little bit more, and you worry less about the out of bounds basically. So I think that this sort of situation is worth having a look at if you are thinking about a set of blades. The flight off them is really, really good. Like, it feels to me like it's not spinning too much and it's kind of launching about right. With this kind of club, I mean, these are not sort of chunky cavity backs by any means, they are a blade. You just sort of feel like you might get one that jumps on the wind a little bit. I mean, whether that's reality, whether that's just perception is a different matter, but that is certainly how you feel. And that's just, I mean, that feels like it's come off so much quicker. Yeah, and it has gone kind of 6 or 7 yards further through the air. So I think there is a little bit more control out of those blueprints, particularly out of this kind of wispy stuff where you might get a jumper out of something a bit more cavity. But I mean, the head just looks so neat and tidy. It's really, really good.
So we've been out on the course with Tom now, and we've also got the TrackMan numbers. Looking at the numbers originally, Tom was a bit worried that these wouldn't necessarily go as far in the longer irons as he's seen in his current ping irons, but we actually found on the course some of the tee shots with the 4-iron were actually travelling further with the blueprint iron. And I think that was down to we were slightly into the wind. The trajectory with this club was just a lot better than his and more controlled. Looking at that, he wasn't actually losing distance, and the dispersion was definitely a lot tighter. Obviously this is designed for good golfers. Tom is a scratch player, so these are suiting his game. Sometimes I think he feels if he's not quite on his game, these might not be as forgiving as his irons, but you know, they're not designed with as high MOI as his irons, so people who are looking at these irons are looking for more dispersion, they're looking for more consistency, not necessarily looking for more distance. So we also saw when hitting them out of the rough that you weren't quite getting that flyer. It was a lot more consistency on distance, and you're just taking like the back of the green out of play on those kind of shots. This is especially important for Tom round here because there's quite a few holes where there's out of bounds over the back, so he wants to know that he can hit his number and that out of bounds is just taken out of play. So I think we definitely saw that Tom preferred using these in his shorter irons, such as the Wedge. Like, he felt like the control was a lot better, the dispersion was tight, and he could really fire at pins. Going up to the longer clubs, obviously there isn't quite as much forgiveness, so maybe that's somewhere where he didn't feel quite as comfortable using them. But we did see that they actually performed really well out on the course, despite the fact that the numbers weren't quite as good on TrackMan as they were with his irons. So it just shows the importance of taking new irons out on the course and making sure you're not just relying on TrackMan numbers, because being out on the course and being on the range are completely different environments, and there's so many different situations that you're going to use your irons in. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you again soon.